Welcome to Cash Talk, the podcast where we delve into the depths of finance, business, and life itself. I'm your host, John Cachia, a multi-award-winning wealth advisor with a passion for empowering ambitious Australians to confidently achieve financial freedom. Hey everyone, before we get started, this is a quick reminder that everything in this podcast is of a general nature and nothing has been tailored to your personal circumstances. So please seek personal financial advice before acting on this information. And welcome back to Cash Talk, and today I'm joined by Anthony. Anthony, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks, yourself.
Yeah, not bad, mate, not bad. Just looking forward to getting on my trip, which is just upon us. So some much needed time away, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well deserved.
Oh, well, I hope so, mate. Hope so. But today, guys, we want to speak about something that we haven't talked too much about around business owners and some of the decision making that we've been seeing with business owners, not just recently, over many years, in regards to what they do with their money. And I even had a conversation today, Anthony, about a business owner, about what they do with their money. And there's a few things that business owners tend to do a little bit different to employees, and we'll just dive into a few of them. And I know one of the big ones that people do when they're self-employed, because they're not forced, if they don't pay themselves wages, to pay superannuation. Do you still see a lot of that?
Yeah, it's very common where people that actually aren't taking a wage from the business don't usually put super contributions in. Sometimes you see them when the business is doing well and they get some advice to put some money into superannuation for the tax benefits, but often the retirement planning side of things gets forgotten about.
And do you think that becomes from their backing the success of their own business over other ventures, or what is that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, people that have their own business are really focused on just building that business, and they're not really paying attention to the wealth outside of their business. So they live and breathe their own business, but they are their business as well. So when their time's done, the business is done too, and then they're left with nothing in personal assets, which is sometimes, pretty unfortunate.
And the stats don't go in favour for people selling businesses as well too. Like the majority is that when the business owner departs that business, most businesses don't get sold, or get sold at a very, very nominal level that doesn't really make an impactful change on the person's life. But superannuation is an interesting one, Anth, because a lot of business owners don't like to pay tax, and it is especially through the concessional contributions that most people can do. And then if they do some small business, tax concessions, if they do like restructuring or do sell the business, superannuation is a great vehicle, both for employees and both for business owners. And it's something that always frustrated me a little bit that people didn't adopt it, because, a government puts limits on certain caps inside superannuation. And I firmly believe it's because it's so favourable. If it was like unlimited, the government would be very worried about their taxpayers' dollars that they're getting, because it is a very tax effective structure with 15% on contribution taxes on earnings. But I think you raised a good point, Anthony, about not just superannuation. Like, you look at holistically in regards to their wealth. It's something that I think as a business owner, you need to think about why you went into business in the first place. And usually you go into business, yes, you want to do your job, and you've got a passion for what you do, and take that aside, financially speaking, it's to create a business that ends up, first and foremost, kind of perpetuating on its own, but also to build wealth, to put you in a position to be financially free so that you don't need to trade time for money. Now, if that is the case and you're putting all of your eggs in your business basket, it's really a lack of diversification. Now, where the art comes is around when you make that business profit, and so you've got your income, your expenses, your profit. That profit being turned into personal wealth to enable the diversification. And what I saw for many years, and I continue to see, is that businesses not moving that profit to, like we spoke about superannuation, but also to things like just normal investments, paying off debts. They're keeping it in the business, and it's creating this cash-eating monster, which is you hear the often thing like, oh, I'm just going to do this to reinvest into the business. I'm just going to do this to reinvest. And they just keep reinvesting in the business with the hope of it getting to where it needs to get to. But businesses really need to take that kind of profit off the table first, don't they?
Yeah, I'm a really firm believer that you have to separate yourself from the business when it comes to finances. Like, a lot of the time you got to have, okay, this is what we've got in the business and this is what we got personally. And then figuring out, and what I do with a lot of my clients is actually figuring out, okay, in your personal life, how much money do you need to live? Okay, so firstly, knowing what that is and being able for the business to be profitable enough to take that money out, and then say, okay, how much extra is the potential that the business can earn, and what can we do with that money? Yes, you may still want to reinvest in the business to help it grow, but also what, like you said, what do we invest outside the business too? So setting targets and goals of what we're going to achieve personally, and then working the business as a income vehicle to build personal wealth.
And you raised a good point, Anthony. It's like, what's the lifestyle first, and then what does the business need to do to make that happen? Now, obviously, there comes intricacies in regards to how do I get that money out tax effectively. But if you don't take out the money out of the business, your lifestyle will sacrifice substantially. And we've recently had a prospective client that this was the exact case. You know, the business was kind of hoarding all of the money, and the person on the outside was living terribly. They were actually accumulating debts. And ultimately, the business wasn't pumping the money to the person's personal life. The personal life was just sacrificing. So we need that nice, even balance. We need it tax effectively done. We don't want to be paying tax for no reason. And is there, like, obviously you talked about, you know, we set the goal in regards to how much they need to take out of the business to obviously do their lifestyle. We structure it the right way. But what about things like superannuation as a rule of thumb? Like I used to do, and obviously I mentored you, but in regards to like trying to mimic what the SG rate is, like trying to get to, like, if it's 12%, try to mimic that 12% as at least as a benchmark. You know, how many people adopt that and, you know, build on from that?
Yeah, well, it's very rare where you see people coming to us initially where they've got their own business and they're paying themselves 11.5% SG
of their profit.
Being self-employed. So it's not often the case. You do see sometimes where people are self-employed and they've got themselves on the books actually paying themselves a wage, and then they're paying themselves superannuation, which then that's like for their superannuation, that's good because there's money going into there building up their retirement savings. But often if that's not the case, you may see, I don't know, some smaller contributions at the end of the financial year to put something in to save money on tax. But as a consistent flow of money going to superannuation, it's very, very rare to see. I think I actually read before that the stat is of business owners that pay themselves super, it's only 20%,
Wow.
which is extremely low.
Yeah. To think about how good of it is as an investment vehicle, and especially in that growth bucket, being able to, you know, just build up assets for after 60, it's phenomenal that only, you know, 2 out of 10 people are actually doing it. Do you think there's an apprehension to invest in things that you can't control?
Yeah, I think people are scared because superannuation is so far away that they're scared. They're like, oh, we're going to lock up all this money. And it's really about the opportunity cost then of locking up this money for a long time. A lot of people don't like to plan for too far ahead in the future. They want to see what they can see now. And when you say that you're not going to be able to access your superannuation in 30, 40 years, they're very apprehensive to be putting that money towards it, even though there are the great tax benefits.
Like I can put $10,000 towards my marketing, and then that marketing is going to make me more rather than $10,000 into my retirement balance. Yeah, I think there's that. I think there's also the sense of just investing in general. I think that, you know, why am I going to put money into Commonwealth Bank shares or Westpac shares where I can't control their outcome? But I think the business is a very high risk operation.
Very high risk.
And so for me anyway, personally, and you happen to be my advisor, is around, like, we have discussions around diversifying my wealth. Because, you know, if you think about the business as an asset has continued to grow and continued to get bigger. But that, in comparison to my personal wealth, needs to be well diversified. Because if I'm too highly weighted in regards to my business, I'm riding or dying in my business.
100%.
And you want to get it to the point where you're non-reliant on your business asset. And for business owners, and from one business owner to another, and Anthony's a partner in this business as well, if you're just backing one horse in the race, or you can have 6 horses in the race, your probability of getting to where you need to get to, and I think that scares me fundamentally for clients, is around your whole retirement, your whole financial freedom is backed on one asset. And a lot of people say, yeah, I'm happy with that. Like, that's what I want to do and that's where I'm going to make my money. But the stats are saying different. You know, I think it's, you know, 2/3 of businesses fail within like the first 3 years.
And the scary thing is as well, it's not like you've just got. It's not like it's your only asset. It's your income. It's your only income stream as well. It's not like you're investing in, like you said, some blue chip stocks somewhere, but you still got your normal job where you're earning an income. You've got your income and your money invested all in the one place, so it puts you at even more exposed risk if something was to happen to your business. Everything's going to come down.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting how much your behavior impacts your decisions, and even more greatly when you're self-employed.
Yeah.
I think the other one as well too, Anth, is that it's not investing, superannuation. I think there's also a matter of like taking business seriously as well too, like separating, like I think like yourself as in the business as its own entity, and separating yourself. And what I mean by that is around like even decision making around the business. And I'm talking about the way that it's structured, the way that it runs, the way that like all of this is a deep rabbit hole for a self-employed person in regards to their decisions with the operations of their business and with both their money. And I think the biggest thing is, Anth, they need a plan that separates themselves from their business.
Yeah. And even like you mentioned there, like other things that businesses need to consider, like the structuring of businesses, how many times that is not like how many times that could be set up better, or how many times I've seen businesses need to be changed after actually speaking to someone and then realizing, oh, why am I a sole trader after all this time? Like, yeah, it might have been good 10 years ago when you started the business, but as it's grown, you've outgrown that structure. Like I actually had a conversation last week with a new client, and they were still in a sole trader environment. And then I told them, this is probably a conversation you need to have with your accountant because your income's going well, the business is growing. They've had that conversation. They're moving to a new structure now.
Yeah. And so it's very interesting. As a financial advisor, we are both tax financial advisors. So we're registered with the Tax Practitioners Board, and we can understand structures and tax implications of structures as well too. And it's interesting, Anth, like I obviously see a lot of new clients, and I agree with you. Their structures are incorrect. They're incorrect both from a tax perspective and from a risk perspective. And, even today I had another one, the way that they were structured, there was clear holes that I could see. We'll obviously work with the accountant and the lawyer to make sure it's protected on one side, and obviously the tax minimisation. But I think if we take one step back around businesses, people need to be honest that with themselves, that the business will hopefully flourish. But if it doesn't, what's your plan B? And it gives me great peace of mind for me and my family that we have assets that sit completely outside the business, and that I am not reliant on the business's overall success, that I can still do what I need to do from the personal wealth. And that's from obviously taking profits off the table that I could have reinvested back in the business. And don't get me wrong, I had to reinvest in the business over a period of time. And there was periods of time, Anthony, I didn't even put super in. But these were very infancy years, that I had a game plan to say after a particular point, this was going to happen, But we're talking about long term. We're talking about some people not doing it for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, roll up to retirement, and their balances in superannuation are nominal.
Yeah, 100%. Because when you're going through without saying, like, you go through the growth stage of a business, you're going to have to reinvest a lot. But, okay, once you've gone through that reinvesting stage, you got to then, okay, what are we doing for the future and looking after yourself?
And I think, Anthony, it's just that addiction to like reinvest in the business to get bigger. And when you need to start taking money off the table. And I think the other one as well too is just like, even just having regular payments when it comes to your income. Like a lot of people will, just ride the profits, up, down, left or right. And they figure out their lifestyle on the back of these riding. Like, I know with our cash flow plan, like we take out a nominated amount. Now that might come in the form of a distribution, a dividend, whatever, or wages, or a combination of all three. But the reality is that regular payment coming out.
Yeah, the worst. That's like one of my pet hates when I try to, like, when I'm speaking to someone, I go, okay, so like how much are you taking out of the business? And they're like, oh, I don't know, we just take out whatever we need. And it just leaves me pulling my hair out. Like they don't know. They don't even know how much they're taking out of the business or what they're spending, because they're just doing it ad hoc whenever they feel like they need some money, and it's a mess.
And so why is that bad, Anth? Like obviously it's pretty self-explanatory to us, but like with the inconsistency of not knowing, what does that what does that not enable you to do?
Well, it's not letting the person know, firstly, how much they're spending personally, and then it's taken away from, okay, like, how is the business health? Like, how is the money in the bank accounts? Do we have enough money to pay our tax and our bills and business expenses? And when you're just taking out money ad hoc and the money's all over the place, it's very unorganized. And if you want to run a business, for a good business to run, you need to have that structure and the organization to be able to know, okay, I need this much for my business expenses each month. I need to make sure we've got this for GST, we've got this for tax, and then this is my personal expenses. We need this much each month to take out of the business. And we need to make sure that our business can actually afford to pay that money, because a lot of the time, like, you'd be surprised how many times I actually see people trying to run a business, and then you have to sit down and have a conversation. Is it worth some people actually going off and getting a job rather than working for themselves, because they could be going off doing what they're doing for someone else, earning twice as much and living a lot less stressful life by making these decisions.
And so do you think, Anth, there's a matter of, like, for you, the frustration as the advisor is if we don't do that, you have the lack of planning, like you can't plan?
Yeah, it's hard to plan when you don't know that, when you can't say, okay, I know how much I spend or how much I earn. It's very hard to plan.
And so would you, Anth, if let's say you had a seasonal business that maybe went up and down, like, how do you figure out, like, the amount that comes in? Like, do you create, like, a bare minimum, like a minimum level, and then float?
So if that's fine. If you've got a business where the income is not always consistent, you've got better months and you've got poor months, if you're just building up money in the bank account and you're paying yourself a regular wage or a regular drawing from that bank account, it's going to be running a little bit slimmer on those poorer months, but on those good months, it should build up to cover for those lower months. So if you work out throughout the whole year that you've got $100,000 that you can take out of the business to fund your living expenses, and you need $5,000 a month or whatever it is, like, as long as that money it may not be coming in at once, but you've built up that storage in the business to be able to continue to pay the wage. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I get it. So it's if you don't know your numbers, you can't plan. You get lack of clarity. Therefore, you can't optimize.
And it's going to make
a snowball effect.
Yeah, and it just makes it makes the business owner stress even more, because now they're stressing. Can we put food on the table? These months are running low. Where if you just plan this properly from the start, forecasted how much you're going to make over the 12 months, you could easily plan how much you need to take out and know that you're going to be okay, or know that things aren't going to be okay. And if your numbers fall below X amount, we need to make a hard decision of what we do.
Yeah. It's interesting, Anth, because also we're talking about businesses who have, like, a lack of clarity, inconsistencies, and people might be thinking about, like, this just as, like, the struggling, two-man band, but this is businesses, bigger businesses that are much larger than people, like, much larger, and people have still the same pain points. How do I get this profit into personal wealth in the most tax-effective way? I have no oversight, no over clarity. I've made more money, but I still am spending more. It's still the same pain point. So don't think that we're just talking about small infancy businesses. These businesses are businesses at all different scales. The other one as well too, Anth, is usually with business owners, they're very time poor as well too, okay? They're juggling a lot of hats. They've got their personal life. I know even me personally, like with all the personal kids activities and everything, it's crazy sometimes, okay? And I kind of have a decent business with some good team members, but when it then goes to managing their finances, I was speaking to a client maybe 6 months ago. They came on board. They had $2.2 million sitting in a bank account, not earning any interest. And I asked him, and I said to him, like, why aren't you earning any interest? And they're just like, we just never got around to it. At 5%, which, like, we get in a bank account, that's $110,000 a year. And literally their expenses, I think, were like 80 grand. And so just by that decision, and they had no reason besides we just haven't got around to it. And we can laugh at this, but the reality is that they didn't. They were so busy making money. Good on them. It's a good problem to have. But the money wasn't then optimized. Then when we kind of opened up everything, usual suspects ends, structure incorrect. Risk was out of control. We needed to kind of de-risk them. Personal assets, hardly any. So time poor people kind of go into, I'll do it tomorrow. And when it comes to, like, superannuation as well, I'll get around to it. And it never happens. And so if you don't set these foundations straight away or as soon as possible, you get this momentum problem happening. Yeah. Where it's this perpetual motion in regards to rocking up potentially 15 years down the track going, oh yeah, crap. I should have put money into super. I should have invested. I should have, because now I'm back on one horse and hopefully this horse produces, because if it doesn't, I'm stuffed. There goes my retirement. There goes absolutely everything. So, you know, I think that business owners need to take their money, their business as one vehicle, and then look about what they're doing with that vehicle. What are we just keep on feeding the beast? How much can we take off the table to live our life, like Anthony was saying? And also think about what's stopping you from constantly optimizing. And I think there's a lack of clarity, a lack of knowledge, yeah, and a lack of time being allocated to people's finances, especially when they're self-employed. But and today's been good, kind of diving into the business owner realm. And as everyone can see, there's a lot of kind of things that business owners need to think of, and we could have kept going. But I want to thank you very much for watching and listening this episode of Cash Talk. If you're loving these, make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and also on all major music platforms. Be sure to share it to friends and family as well. But Anth, thanks for jumping on, and see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.